Good morning, and thank you for starting your day with Mary in the morning on 106.7 UFM. I'm Mary Rogers. We're going to have a really interesting conversation for you this morning about developing a strong internal foundation. We have seven-time author joining us, Marcia Baxter-Magolda, and she has written a book called Authoring Your Life, Developing an Internal Voice to Meet Life's Challenges. What she did is she followed a group of 30 young people through their 20s and their 30s. And what she shares with us in the book is the stories of individuals, the decisions that they had to make along the way, and what was really guiding them in making choices that were key to which path their life would follow. It's a pleasure to welcome her to the show. Good morning, Marcia. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So you talk about authoring your life. First, let's give everyone an idea of what you mean by authoring your life.
Okay. Well, I mean taking internal and personal responsibility for how you feel, how you see yourself, and how you interact with other people. You know, as young people, we often pay a lot of attention to what we hear from those around us, and at some point, usually late adolescence, oftentimes when you go off to college, you face the reality that you need to take some of that up yourself. And so authoring your life really has to do with beginning to coordinate all of the insights and wisdom and advice that you get from your parents, your teachers, your employers, to really figure out how to make decisions for yourself.
Well, and even to acknowledge that you do need to make decisions.
Right. Right.
It gets very basic, but I think that we all know people who have just kind of drifted through life. Mm-hmm. And they just went with where the wind blew them without ever, I guess, really thinking about what they wanted. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's possible if where the wind blows you, seems to work out. Of the people who are the stories that are the source of the book, many of those folks were following plans that they got from other people, and for some it worked out, and for others it didn't. And so the recognition that you need to take some role in that usually comes along when things don't work out so well.
Right. Well, we talk on the show about being a chick in charge, and that doesn't mean bossing other people around, that it means taking personal responsibility for every aspect of your life.
Right.
And some people are very uncomfortable with that because they say, but that's just not fair because I was given certain circumstances that, right out of the gate, I was behind everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so what do you say to people who kind of have chosen to author their life as a victim?
Well, that's difficult because there are people who have varying circumstances, and certainly it is difficult to take control of things when you are sometimes in an oppressed position. But there is a lot of evidence that many people do exactly that, and sometimes being in an oppressed situation is what sparks that, for them to say, obviously the way things are organized is not to my benefit, and so I will rethink how I respond to them or how I approach them.
Right. Now, the basis for this book is that you followed students through their 20s and 30s. Is the book really just meant for that age group?
Well, no. It's addressed to that age group because I think the stories are so rich and so varied that they really could give hope to people who might, as you just said, say, this isn't fair, I can't do this, or I shouldn't have to do this. But it's meant both for people who would find themselves trying to navigate life's challenges, but also for all the people who help them or who try to help them. So the book is also written to anybody who's a parent, who's a teacher, an employer, a faith leader, anybody who has an opportunity to interact with a person who's in their 20s and 30s to talk about, are you taking charge of your own life? And how are you addressing the struggles that you're encountering? And the main thing I've learned from this group of people is that they benefited most when partners in their lives, whoever those people were, listened to them carefully, respected their perspectives, and helped them talk it through, as opposed to saying, well, here's what I think you should do.
Oh, but that's so tempting.
It is.
I love to do that with my kids.
It's the exact thing that allows people to float along and let other people make decisions for them. I'll just go to a counselor. I'll just go to my employer. I'll just go to my teacher or to my mom and say, what do you think I should do? And the person will tell me, and I'll go off and do it.
All right, let's do this. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue talking with Marcia Baxter-Magolda. The name of the book is Authoring Your Life. And what I'd like to ask you, Marcia, when we come back is how do you, what are some conversation starters that you can have with young people in your life to actually be helpful to them instead of just telling them what to do? Mm-hmm. We'll be right back. You're listening to Mary in the Morning on the all-new 106.7 UFM. We're back. I'm Mary Rogers. You have started your day with Mary in the Morning. We are speaking this morning with Marcia Baxter-Magolda. She is the author of Authoring Your Life, Developing an Internal Voice to Meet Life's Challenges. And Marcia, let me ask you, how, for those of us who have kids in their 20s and early 30s, and we want to help our kids with the direction of their life, but we don't want to overparent. Mm-hmm. What kind of opening questions can you help us form for these conversations?
Well, I think the kinds of questions that any of us who are trying to be helpful to young people need to ask focus on getting them to express what's going on for them. So how are you thinking about that? Or what challenges are you facing? How are you feeling about those? What are some of the dynamics? Why is that hard for you? What are you finding difficult about that? And anything that draws out and gets them talking about how they really feel about it. Why do you see it that way? So it's getting to issues, struggles, challenges, things they're uncomfortable with, and getting them to talk about them. And then at some point in the conversation shifting into, do you have any thoughts about how you're going to resolve this? You know, what are some things you're thinking about? What would make it better for you? Suppose they're telling you about a conflict with a friend or maybe even with an employer. How would it be different in a way that would make it work for you? And you get them to try to talk that through. And then you might follow up with, what do you think you could do to start that? Mm-hmm. So you're constantly kind of coaching as opposed to saying, well, you know, I've had that experience, and I really think the best thing for you to do is. Those are the kind of things that then kind of enable following, what I call following formulas, as opposed to sorting it out for myself. And what you really want to do is stay with the person. I've described in the book a learning partnership where you respect the person's thoughts and feelings, you wallow around with them, if you will, in the situation.
Oh yeah.
And then you say to them, you know, you can solve this. I'll support you in thinking through it. But the message is you've got to get out there and do it.
Right. Well, and I think one of the I'm always, I don't know that touched is the word, but my heart really goes out to people who are in their 20s who still have a sense of, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Mm-hmm. It's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
What do you? What?
And part of the real dilemma with that is we spend so much time in secondary schools and oftentimes even in college giving people advice about what they should do, or they have ideas that people want them to do particular things, even if that's not the case. You know, they interpret everything their parents say as a indication that the parents really want them to do X, Y, or Z. And so they spend so much time trying to be what somebody else wants them to be, they haven't really had time to figure out, what else would I do? And
sure.
So it's a very challenging time when they're faced with all kinds of decisions, not only about what to do career-wise, but what to do personally, how to function in relationships, you know, how to handle all the things that come at them on a daily basis, when up until that time, somebody else has been in charge of all those decisions.
Sure. Well, it can even be something as basic as what political party am I affiliated with?
Exactly.
And you find that kids in their 20s, or young adults, I should say, they assumed they were always whatever their parents were.
Right.
And they come out of college going, uh-oh.
Right.
I don't match my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads to some kind of